Got it. Apparently, we are live. So, hey, welcome to another episode of the Operation Growth Show, Season 5, Episode 27, I think. Yeah, 27. Got that right. Um, this week we're going to dive into, I think we'll chat and cover some stuff like around bottlenecking and founders effect in general. I saw that turned up somewhere else, and I thought it would be interesting if we maybe got back into that and talked about it in some degree in terms of how it actually applies to us and our everyday stuff that we're doing. Well, everybody's doing, in terms of when you're applying bottlenecking, when you're doing founders effect, and are we starting to see the impact of that? Some of these decisions that were made earlier on, which resulted in founders and bottlenecking, are we starting to see the impact of that now? But as we get into that, quick round of intros. How's everybody doing? Raptor, how you doing, buddy? How are things going?
I was on mute. Yeah, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for another awesome Saturday of knowledge and just being able to have interesting conversations and discourse. Yeah, I had a pretty good week. I actually got myself set up for a lot of things. I'm going to be doing some composting videos, some vermicomposting videos on my own channel. Uh, just because people have been asking for a little something extra. So I might as well. I'm already doing a lot of content with the neighborhood grows. It's been what 5 or almost 5 years since I've made my YouTube, and it was only for just to have discussions, to be in chat. But hey, since
Hmm.
people are asking for things that I know about, setting up some worm composting stuff, uh, more than happy to have that be my first video. But other than that,
Cool.
yeah, doing pretty good. I won a contest on Instagram for $1,000 of micro posts equipment. So
That's the
I,
tissue culture side of things, yeah?
yeah, fungal and plant
Okay,
tissue
cool.
culture. So it's just
Nice, nice.
filter patches that it's just like a sticker, and the other side is just for free air exchange.
Hmm.
And then they also offer self-healing injection ports. So you can really just make everything you need in a timely and efficient manner. So that's great
Yeah.
for me. I'm
And hey, a
probably,
thousand pounds not to be sniffed, $1,000, sorry, not to be sniffed at. That's for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm still like, my jaw is still dropped to the floor, just like, I've never had people ask me to spend money. So it's still kind of getting in my head, like, how do I do this? So I'm gonna be
Go to the site.
messaging him with the order on
Oh,
Sunday. Yeah. I like this, I like that, I like this. There was one thing
exactly.
on the site that it was a tissue stamp, like I forget the exact term for it, but it looks like a pen, and you could just stamp out some tissue samples from there. So you
The
can
whole punch without the whole thing. It just does the
yeah,
punchy bit.
exactly. It's just a hole punch. Boom.
Mm.
You got that. And I just need to ask him if he's willing to include that in it. And I'll just, I think it's like $100 to $150. We'll see. But if I want it, cool, fine by me. I wasn't really sure if I was gonna buy that. I was just gonna makeshift, something like jerry rig something and make it work within my small scale. But hey, upgrades are upgrades.
Hey, pre-done, all ready to go makes life so much easier.
Yeah,
And they ain't stupid, mate. You'll get so used to being nice and easy. Get your business off the ground, whatnot, and you'll be back spending $1,000 with them next time around to do it all again.
yeah, it's gonna come and fly by right away.
Whatever flies by right away, they'll be covering them. To buy some more wouldn't be much then. Hey, Lefty, how you doing, buddy? How things going? How's
I'm doing
life in the
good, man.
greenhouse?
Doing good. Everything's going pretty well. Yeah, I spent some time out in the greenhouse this morning, and I got my fans going. Got
Mm-hmm.
my
Mm-hmm.
fans probably, I don't know, about a little over a week ago or so, and had them installed. Just wasn't happy with the electrical, and yeah, so I did some playing, and yeah, they're oh, dude, them things kick ass. But Yeah, definitely can smell the plants from a ways away now with those big industrial fans blowing all that air out. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's doing really good, man. You get in there and you can see all the plants in there really moving around, and then fans got some air moving. So yeah, that's nice to have. Everything's starting to flower out now. Probably within the last week, everything's either showing pre-flower or actually flowering out. Anything that was a clone that went out, it's already starting to get like nice little buttons on it. So yeah, everything's moving along. Everything's healthy. Um, Hoping here in the next month I'll be able to pop some of the F1s from the Banana OG Arise project, which I call the Wooderson project, and hoping to get going looking through those soon, and start doing some work with those. So yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff going on with work in the greenhouse and the garden and everything. But yeah, it's been fun and starting to finally catch up and enjoy it instead of just being freaking tired all the time and having to get things done. So yeah, everything's going good, man. Garden's looking good, vegetables are good, everything's going ape shit in that greenhouse.
Yeah, it's amazing what a difference they actually do make. I mean, and this, yeah, anything that likes it a little bit warmer just suddenly takes off. There's something like a sunflower. There was one that was some sunflowers outside. One was you're looking a bit sick. The other, well, I'll put two of them in the greenhouse, and they just healed up and whoop, off they went. I'd swear they're now taller than the ones that have been the healthier ones that were outside. They're,
Yeah. And cannabis plants are definitely a hot, humid, loving plant. So, I mean, it's, 90 degrees indoors in a tent is way different than, 90 degrees outdoors in fresh air. These things haven't stumbled a bit. And I mean, we've crept up 95, 98, and in that greenhouse, it's been all of 105. I guarantee it. And yeah, they haven't even blinked, man. They're just loving it. So it's amazing what those plants do in their actual environment compared to a tent.
Yeah, it was, and I swear it's probably all that extra air movement as well because it's easy to get there. It's a bigger volume of air. It's just everything's moving, more even than the little environment that's too 1 foot. It's just, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Keep in properly.
Well, I got those sides rolled up, and they roll up about 3.5 foot. So you're pulling all that air from the side, so it's pulling up underneath of all those plants actually, and pulling through all the bottoms of those plants. It's crazy the airflow in there, man.
Nice.
Yeah.
Be good. It'd be cool to see. Can't wait to see the final ones. We'll show some more pictures along the way as they to see the progress of how they're doing.
Yeah. I'll get you some pics. We'll get some good ones for next week, buddy.
Yeah, that sounds excellent. And GMF, how are you doing, sir?
Oh, excellent. Just fortunate to be hanging out with y'all, man. Can't complain. Honestly, today is a cleanup day, so I'm just processing down trim and all that kind of stuff, chipping it into little tiny pieces so it can get composted and then fed to the worm bin. So yeah, for me, it's just, the grunt work of gardening today, to be quite honest. Nothing that exciting, but that's what we got to do if we want to clear out room and be ready to get back to it. So, that's part of just being on a perpetual, always having chores.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I got to make room for my next little, absolutely. And I got to make room. I've got my next little breeding project. Being limited on plants, I'm always kind of doing one little project after another. So, right now I've got a couple of seeded deep chunks that have to finish so I can get some more seeds out of that. Then up after that, I've got the PCK by Golden Goat. So I'm going to do a base run of that and kind of breeding that out to get the widest number possible to start playing with. Kind of leading into today's topic, I would think, when we're talking about the founder's effect, how we're, starting with these small groups, but then trying to do what we can to preserve what's there. But yeah, that's exactly what I'm up to at this very moment with a cross that's from about 10 years ago or so from Denver. It's Pakistani Chitral Kush by Golden Goat from back in the day. I had the seeds frozen for a number of years, and recently they've been pulled and cracked, and they're about to be bred out for a generation to look through. Thought I'd just softball a lead in.
Yeah, no, and again, that was it came up. I forget where it was. I remember the topic came up, and I thought, oh yeah, it is interesting. And just hearing the general conversation going on, and just like yeah, cookies, everything's cookies, cookies, and everything. I'm just using it. Just hear that name all the time, and you'd hear like Granddaddy Purple all the time, and various other ones, and maybe this is also why we're not seeing many work lines. We're starting to just see crosses. I wouldn't even go so far as to say, like F1, F2, because they're really just crosses. You're just taking, okay, this and that and put them together and you get whatever comes out of it. There's no purpose to it. And that's become symptomatic of the fact that it's too difficult to try and work one of these lines, because you take these extreme polyhybrids and you try and cross them together, and the polyhybrid doesn't mean that it's necessarily got a lot of good variety in it. It's just a mishmash of everything. But not in a good way, if that makes sense. It's not from distant relatives. It's a mishmash of everything from inside this little incestuous little group. And so we're seeing that's become problematic. And that's why to try and, if you start with a land race and another land race and you cross those and then you work that line, you can probably get to something fairly stable fairly quickly, because you still get a lot of variety, but it's small palette. I don't know what the right word is that I'm looking for.
It's more of a confined variety. It's more of like a confined variety, where the variety is going to be like between this plant and that plant. You don't have a shit ton of grandparents to look through. You know what I mean? When you're messing with like a bunch of these, cookies, there's so much shit that's just cookies. Sure, gelato. I mean, runts. You can go on and on and on and on. And I mean, you can cross
it sounds like it'll give you diabetes. It's there.
Yeah, I mean, you can cross it a million times, and it's like you're going to get variety, but it's not going to be that wide of variety, because in the long run, it all comes back to really being cookies. So like, so like when you're doing land races, you don't have quite, I don't know, because everything goes back to cookies one way, and then the other way you get the variety, and you're not really bottlenecking yourself, because it's almost more of a true hybrid than rather a polyhybrid when you work with the land race. You know what I mean? I know what you're saying, Pete.
I think it's right. What the problem is, it's this recessive inbreeding. I mean, and that's the thing, is you don't have a really wide pool to select from. But the problem is, what you think when you look at these lineages and you see that like everything has got this in it and everything has got that, and at some point it's not as diverse as we actually think it is. It's really quite narrow, and it's overly inbred now. It's all this recessive weirdness and things like that, and the dominant traits don't necessarily exist. The good, well, not that dominant means good, but we've lost these other pieces, and that's a result of the founder's effect being the breeder who breaks seeds out into packs of 10. Every pack of 10 is the founder's effect happening there. And then the bottlenecking effect being every one of us who grows that pack of 10 and goes, those are the 2 phenotypes or genotypes I'm going to keep, and the rest are gone. And then they work those, and somebody goes, this is the nuts, and it gets crossed with something, and next minute it's the next big rage and being worked into everything. But it itself was the tail end of another big rage that happened.
Right.
So it's not really this, immense new variety.
Just scraps
so it's basically stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're talking about basically pop culture as applied to our thing, because it's one thing built on top of another, built on top of another. Every phase of pop culture comes out of the one before it. And that sounds like really what we're talking about. Whether it's in food, how things go through phases of, this year it's going to be mango salsa. Next year, it's going to be avocados. The year after, it's going to be pomegranates. Like, they go through phases of pop culture stuff, and a lot of it comes
just
from
thankfully,
like the same thing here.
Yeah, I mean, and unfortunately, unlike in the food world, where because it's mango salsa this year, doesn't mean that suddenly avocados and everything else are gone.
Right.
You know what I mean? Whereas it's almost what sort of happens here is like everything follows that hype, and Then, of course, everything gets labeled that Hyper's Cheddar Bob 13. There's nothing more than the number of names that go for exactly the same thing. So, all the same, yeah, everything else called the same thing. Which further adds to that whole mush up.
Well, I don't know, and maybe this is weird of me to say, but like even in my own experiments that I've been doing over the years, I don't get very excited for the F1 or the F2 or any of that stuff. In fact, it's really not until something's in that F3 or F4 that I start getting really excited for about what can happen. And I don't know if that's just me being old or what. That's just me being a dinosaur.
It's certainly going to be more stable at that point. You're going to be getting into, and I'm hearing it more now. I mean, you do hear people saying it would be nice to get a pack of seeds where it looks like the picture on the pack, or where I don't have to have 20 varieties that I have to look for. And that is something you're starting to hear more and more. I think people are getting like, the breeder will say, "Oh, there's this amazing phenotype. You might get it." It's like, no, hold on a second. How about you guarantee I get it? Yeah.
Well, and I think Tasmanian Devil then brings up a very good point. Like, what is the object of breeding? Is it to get consistency, or like today, is it to get variability? Because obviously certain people are buying packs because they enjoy that pheno hunt. I know we have friends that enjoy the pheno hunt. Some people do.
I mean, this is not, this is, okay, to be clear, this is probably more about in the commercial scene. I think like in the home grow scene, go wild. I can cross everything with anything, create whatever mucky mush you want to create.
It's like home brewing, get crazy.
Yeah, but it's when people are selling the stuff out, and that's where the breeding comes in, doing it professionally, where, yes, what you are trying to produce is consistency. And to do that, you need to work the line to start with. So you need something that's workable to start with. And maybe that's becoming more and more difficult, is to find that workable raw material. Because I'm not giving you red and blue, I'm giving you purple and telling you at some point you might be able to get red and blue out of this again if you're lucky.
But is all of this adding more value to the genetics that are actually being worked like they should be?
There you go. Are they a value-added product at that point?
Yeah, I think it is. Like, unless it's this whole thing of people knowing like, hey, this is gonna give us reliable results where we can actually, let's say you're running an outdoor operation and everything's all legal, you kind of need all that stuff. I could understand from the point of I can only understand, I should say, from the point of a small scale where like, okay, like some pheno hunts, I really don't mind that. Every little square space is precious, but I have less on the line. So it should be valued more, because look at how much more you're getting out of it from the people that need it. But yeah, I like to have some variety if I know what I'm. It should be on the pack from the breeder. Hey, if there is 4 in there, you're going to tell me about all those 4. Or if it at least mention it on the pack so that I can contact you and get a whole breakdown, and you can direct me to like, oh, well, I wrote a blog about it. Here it is. And then you
should have, yeah. I mean, what you should be able to get on the back of a pack of the seeds is, there is one genotype here. These are the phenotypes that are expressed in these environments. That would be really cool to get. If you want to get this, grow it like that. If you want to get this out of it, grow it like that. And, there's your variety, is switch up the environment that you're growing it in. And then you can find something that matches your environment, that goes, I'm growing in this environment and I want a pack of seeds from a breeder that gives me this in this environment. Does something exist? No, change your environment, because otherwise you're just not going to do anything, But also, that would be the interesting thing to say. That's where the phenotypic variety is that if you fuck with the environment this way, you're guaranteed at 23 degrees Celsius and 65% humidity, you'll get this, at 27 degrees Celsius and 50% humidity, you're going to get this, that kind of thing. That would be nice.
That requires testing.
Sorry?
That requires testing.
And a stable line.
Yeah, and a stable line. And what I'm seeing too is like a problem with this. You buy a 10-pack of regular seeds, okay? And if a breeder's got 2 genotypes and 3 phenotypes, or 2 genotypes and 2 phenotypes from each, you got a regular pack of seeds. Well, anywhere from 4 to 6 of those seeds are males. Now you've got, 4 to 6 females to possibly look at. And if there's 3 to 4 phenos, or, a couple different genotypes, well, now you might get to look at one of each one of those phenotypes. Well, it's like, oh, I see it. Well, just because you see it doesn't mean it's a good one of that. Just because you're seeing that phenotype doesn't mean it's a good keeper of that. It's like, no, I see it. Oh, there's a stretcher. Oh, there's the short, fat one. Oh, there's the, orange haired one. It don't mean it's good. It just means you found it. So if you're getting 4 randoms, it's like, no, I didn't want that one. And the one I did want turned out to be a piece of shit. So it's really interesting when you get into regular seeds too, of, you see one of this, one of that, one of this, one of that, instead of seeing 3 or 4 of, the one pheno that you're possibly looking for and picking the best out of 3 or 4. Now you got to play all these numbers games where, maybe you have to pop actually 4 packs of seeds to go through 20 or 25 females to be able to find that one out of that one pheno that you want. Because there's so much variability. So when you start talking about regular seeds and variability, it's starting to get really crazy with some of these seeds, man. It really is going to get crazy with some of the shit that's coming out of it.
And again, when anybody wants to, again, this is what's going to happen when it goes truly commercial. When people want to get into doing this as a business, the farmers, as I keep saying, the farmer's going to want to buy a pack of seeds from you, or a pound, 2 pounds, 100 pounds of seed that when he plants out the field, there's no variation. That's a stable line. That's what they mean by a stable, like they do their normal crop. They're using combine harvesters and things like that to strip this material. It requires consistency in the product, because the second they can't mass harvest it, they lose interest. They'll move on to something else because it's not cost effective to do it. Now, again, that's the commercial side. The home grow community, totally different, totally separate. That's where all this wild and crazy stuff goes on. But it's really going to be interesting to see how that progresses and who are going to be the people that put that in. So that's, to me, that would be the stable line. Is it comes with, these are the phenotypes, and it could list like a wide list of phenotypes in the back of the packet, but next to each phenotype is an environmental setting that comes with it, so that you go, okay, cool. So what you're saying is, if I grow all of these seeds in this environment, this is what I'm going to get. It's not like I could get all of these in the same environment. It's like, come on. Or at least close to it. I mean, we're talking like the impossible perfection, but you go buy pepper seeds at your local garden nursery.
We're not talking about anything that's impossible. I mean, it's very possible. It's very possible. It's just going to takes work. It's going to take a lot of work for somebody to go through that and do that. And breeders don't want to do that kind of work because it takes too long. They'd all be broke.
Exactly. And that's where I'd like to, who's going to, are those are people who put the time in now who are going to reap the rewards later, because they're going to be able to be the ones who turn around and go, yeah, okay, I can do it. I can actually deliver what you're looking for. Everybody's going, I can do hype, because a buyer's going to get burnt once and then never deal with you again. You know what I mean? Sorry, TMF.
Oh, I think you're totally right. It's about it's about the ability to specialize and get good at. It's about growing a market to maturity where people have the ability to specialize and get good at very particular things. Okay. The only thing I can draw it to is like food and beer all the time. But I think right now the apropos one is like, there's something called low oxygen brewing. and it's a different technique, but it's only practiced by a low number of people. But those who understand it can really tweak certain knobs other people can't. And so when it comes time, when a professional really needs to have that, as part of that element, it's worth a lot of money to them. There's home brewers that have dialed in particularly how to do low oxygen brewing and how to get that side effect, things like that. It has to do with kind of like, home brewers are much like us. You'll get some that will do the weirdest, wildest things under the sun. They do the weirdest new thing every day. They, like me, I never brew the same thing twice. I have friends who work, like, for example, I know one guy, he's got a champion Vienna lager. He's had it bottled nationally, and that's his thing. He works on that Vienna lager till he gets it perfect. That is his baby, his pride and joy. So I think the whole point of this is we as home growers really are the ones who have the freedom to do that kind of line work if we want to, because we don't have a bottom line to satisfy. Just like the home brewers who can really push the edge of that, we are the ones who have the opportunity to actually do it. Well, maybe that's a weird idea, but we're not constrained by the need to make a dollar off it. As a result, we can do things that maybe large people are not, or breeders, like, Lefty said, they'd go broke if they tried to do it. Well, maybe we're not trying to make a dollar, so maybe we can do it.
Yeah, or sorry, go ahead, Lefty.
I was just going to kind of say, it goes back to, cultivation too, the guys who are pumping out units and the guys who are, pheno hunting for that clone. They sacrifice crop after crop after crop to find a keeper clone of something, rather than, just cropping out units and making that money. They're losing all that money by pheno hunting. It's kind of the same thing. It's like, why spend all that time looking for something when I can just pump out units? Why go through all this work breeding these seeds when I can just fucking pump out units when people are going to buy them? And that's what's going to happen is people just will continue to buy them until they get educated. So for people to go to F5 and expect everybody to jump on board, they're crazy. It's not going to happen. For one, they should be expecting a premium for those seeds because they did put into more work for them, but it's not going to happen.
And then again, it's, as you say, and it's doing it because, like, a question came up there, somebody in chat mentioning like how many to start with, open pollination, 2,000-3,000 seeds, you're talking, tens of thousands ideally is what you want to be running with. So to get to that stable line F4 by F5, F6, F7, you had to start with 10, 20,000 seeds in the beginning, and you picked probably a few hundred or so from that you moved into the next generation, and you did a few thousand of each one of those, and progressively made your way there. And you had to have started with a really big selection group in the very, very beginning, and then whittle it down. So it's not only the time, but it's the space to do it. That's where, hopefully, fingers crossed, all of this technology from the DNA fingerprinting, from the sequencing side of things, that will just accelerate it so we can do it without having to grow them the whole way out.
And isn't this yet another reason, though, to take into consideration what you and Lefty were talking about just a little bit ago, of starting from land races? Because essentially, when you do that, some of that beginning work, those thousands and thousands of seeds, that's what nature did for you in that case. It created a stable land race, which has that big, nice, fat pool of genetics for you to draw from. Just don't bottleneck it. That kind of makes those land races, that's really the value in them, isn't it? Because they carry that whole host of genetic material, but form a classification of their own almost.
The nice reset button to the gene pool, just like, oh shit. It's almost like putting in some detergent into dirty dishwater so I could dissipate, make this job a little easier. Yeah, I wish there was more work being done on them and that they weren't like scoffed at just because they don't look like the bud that you get in your bag from, your plug down the street. Like that, we should be trying to find things that work for what we're trying to do. If we're trying to have genetics that work well against pathogens and can make it and can survive a little longer in the cold, just a couple more weeks, that really does make a difference. And if we can get that into play, man, they're going to have whoever does the work, like we were saying before, is going to have a big lead on everyone. Like, let's say if we go back into Afghani land races, like, okay, that's great, and it's a short flower, it's stout, and it won't go too out of control. It's something that can be processed reasonably, and we can get something out of it. But does it work well for every situation? And then I know I was talking to someone that was like, oh yeah, I didn't understand why we would get Afghan after Afghan. Why don't we have more variety? It's like, well, those traits are what we were looking for indoors, like where we were kind of just pushed into. So now that we're actually being able to grow into fields, now the genetics are starting to, the gene pool to pick from. Yeah.
But that's it. Well, when that's an example of the bottlenecking effect suddenly being realized. While it was illegal, we wanted things that we could grow. I mean, yes, the other classic one, trying to find the original skunk. People trying to find the original roadkill, whatever it is, that they're looking for, because, as everybody mentions, back in the day, shit, it smelled. People would get you bust. So breed out the smell. So everything that gets selected doesn't have the huge, pungently nasty smell to it. Pick every other smell other than the nasty stuff to try and hide it. Now everybody wants it, but of course it's not available anymore because it got bottlenecked, purposefully
all of a sudden
bottlenecked
everyone's
out of
asking, where's the skunk? What happened to the skunk?
Exactly.
And it's somewhere, but it's not around you because you're buying from people that were left over.
And that's in what, 2 generations of, like, in terms of our generation, that's only taken 2 generations for that kind of shit to happen, which, that's, let's say, in what, 20 years, 30 years, it's gone from being widely available to you can't find it anywhere. The 80s was 30 years ago now.
About
40 years ago. Shit.
About 2000 is when it kind
Getting old, Pete. It was 40 years ago.
It was only yesterday. Fuck off.
The
80s still only feels like 10 years ago.
Yeah, look at how technology affected that part too, because we were able to implement. It's not even like that big of a leap in technology. It was just some carbon in a filter that's now making it possible. In some other strains, it's gotten to the point where we've had that carbon filter for so long. Now we're getting smells back that just reek up the house. And even if you might even have to set up 2 carbon filters because it's so prevalent. So it's cool to see everything changing back to, like, hey, let's get more genetic expressions out of this and see what works within our systems. It seems that education, just like how this whole program is about, is making a difference. Having access to the knowledge, I can use this technology so that I can grow in a small space. I can use this technology so that I won't be busted. And yeah, we need more breeders that are aware of just how basic genetics work. Just read any book or any article, however you intake your knowledge, just intake it on actual genetics. It doesn't have to be geared towards anything. It's cool to see the pepper example, like we've been talking about before, because again, that's at home scale. It's home scale mixed with commercial. Yeah. So it's cool to get that example. Yeah. It all comes back to peppers.
And I'm gonna be very unpopular here and say we live in the age of the citizen scientist. We live in a time when there's information available. You don't have to use bro science. Let's just please stop using it's not a positive term. It's not a positive way to look at things. Just don't. Let's just stick with science. We don't need modifiers. We don't need anything to just, let's just do science. And if we actually will learn some science literacy, right? So we understand what terms mean. If we'll actually learn how things function in our world around us from a scientific perspective, we can all be better stewards of our environment. We can all take better care of ourselves and each other because it's actually learning about things in a way that's not, oh, how shall I say, sometimes a waste of your time or a waste of, your brain cells without actually addressing it with actual science.
Yeah, absolutely. The Renaissance will not be bro science.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, bro science or whatever you want to call it can literally be dangerous. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Curiosity
when
is
you're
a
just
great
relying
thing.
on
Call it that, curiosity, because that's exactly what gets you into it. Then you go, oh, no, I want to understand it more. And it's curiosity that then leads you down the path of gaining the knowledge if it doesn't kill you somewhere along the way.
Well said. Well said. Be curious. Be very, very curious, but be critical.
But the sharp
learn
spinny
from real science.
The sharp spinny thing, yeah, don't be overly curious.
It was like, this, we recently went legal here, and I hopped on a couple Facebook groups for the local growers or the state growers and stuff, just to kind of see what
That was nice of you.
What it was going to be like, just to see what the education, some of the questions that would come up. And I lasted about a week and I had to get out of there, man. It was just too much bro science, too much bad information being pushed on the people. I was just like, read a book. Here's the books you need. Read a book. Look into this. Read a book.
Wait, you're saying Facebook was pushing bro science, and oh wow, that's weird.
Yeah, but it was pretty bad. I only could stand there for about 7-8 days, and I just had to go. But yeah, I mean, just the bro science and just the bullshit that's out there. It's like, people just read a fucking book. There's facts around. There's the people have been there, done that. Just read a book. Don't take
ask a microbiologist.
Yeah. There's a lot
you find them on Twitter.
And at the end of the day,
yeah, you can.
Plant like most other plants. I mean, if you want the closest analogy to one to grow, look at growing peppers. There you go. There's your closest proxy plant to growing cannabis is growing peppers. Very similar, DLI, nutrient requirement regimen, exact, perfect. There's no kind of secret magic mojo to doing this shit. There really isn't. But then the other thing about, going back to the seeds thing, what you actually find is if you look back now, because it's always the hype seeds. So seed banks tend to suddenly have stock of all the non-hype seeds from a few years ago. Well, they were hype a few years ago or whatever, and nobody's buying them anymore. So you can actually sort of go back a few generations, and they're usually going to pick them up a little bit cheaper as well all of a sudden. Certainly, you're not going to be paying for them now what people probably were paying for them back in the day because they're no longer the hype. But, it's a handy little trick for finding, we're getting further back, not starting with the latest mush.
So it's like buying sweaters in summer, buy in the off season.
Yeah. But buying 6 years ago's sweaters.
Well, like what a lot of them are doing now too is, they, some of these breeders, a new breeder, let's just say a new breeder comes out with a line, and there's a really popular strain out of that line. It does really well. Well, they decided to move that strain forward and create a new line out of that strain. So now they're taking that and they're crossing that by all the hype, and then they take the best strain out of that line, and then they move that forward and cross it to a bunch of new hype. And they keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. And it's like, holy shit. It's like, how much crap do you have mixed into that at this point? Where do you go? Or how do you know where to even go with it at this point?
And exactly, and that's now why we get to this point where everybody just goes, oh, yeah, it's this crossed with this. And you get what you get. I can't tell you how many varieties, how many phenotypes. When they go, 5, I mean, that's just a thumb suck. I mean, the reason why they give 5, it'll always be like 5, 10, 20. It'll be these even round numbers because they're, not that 5's even all round, but you know what I mean? It's easy numbers to work with.
Right.
Yeah. The other goes this 3. Okay.
Cheers, Ganja.
Hey, Ganja, how you doing, buddy? Got that backward cycling down pat, bro.
You
Cheers.
guys turn it around.
This is where I was. I was late because I was fucking with my GoPro. Sorry. I looked out and all of a sudden I heard it on in the neighborhood and I was like, oh shit, the show's on. Cheers, guys. Cheers, Lefty.
What's good, man?
Let me look through some chat comments here, see what's happening.
Finally got a sunny day here.
Yeah, it looks nice. Looks very nice. One day when the travel corridors open again, hop over there and have a visit. That does look good.
Dude, I'm telling you, we need to buy a boat full of lobster, and I will just set up on the beach and start cooking.
Hey, Pete, is it the coming or going that is giving you the issues as far as travel?
Yeah, you guys won't let us in at the moment unless I do it on business.
Because we know better.
I could do it on business. What I'm really wanting to wait for is just for everybody to sort out what paperwork do you need. So long when they settle on like this is what you need. Okay, cool. I can get that paperwork. No problem. Like my folks just traveled to Malta, and they now needed like letters from the NHS that were letterheaded, on official letterheaded paper, not on the app. So you're like, okay, cool. But like one lot's telling you it's the app, another lot tells you need just figure out the rules. And then we're good.
Maybe by Indo Expo they'll have it all figured out, hopefully.
Yeah, what's it? February.
Yeah, it's the beginning of February they got it booked for, I believe.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, Pete, but the fact that you guys left the EU, I'm sure that'll make it much easier.
I'm
just kidding.
This bit much.
I'm kidding. Europe's going to be like, oh yeah, you want to come visit now?
That's Europe. We want their services, but I've got other places I want to travel to. For sure. Oh, we're seeing the bite though. I mean, and here's the hidden part of getting all like the fruit picking suddenly become a real problem, and it's a double whammy bite now of we don't have any of our migrant workers coming through who are, and the term migrant worker really sort of undersells their skill level. I mean, they're highly trained, highly skilled guys. They're migrant because they follow the seasonal fruit. That's the migrant part. But, tends to have a derogatory sort of meaning at times. But, so I saw one place talking about their peppers, biggest greenhouse in the UK, grows peppers. They said normally at this time of the year, they'd be picked every 3 days. It's now every 7 to 9 days they're getting picked. And yeah, look, they're all red. They shouldn't all be red on the vine. They should be coming off just before it or whatever. And so, yep, that's going to start to bite. All the bars don't have staff because they're mostly European staff that would man the bars. Tattooists are having a problem. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
If you want to become a bar that does tattooing and fruit picking, you're in.
Crush it.
You got to go and pick your fruit that will ferment so that you can drink it while you're being tattooed. There we go.
Okay, I like this model. I'm in.
So, yeah. What's everybody up to there in chat? What about breeders selling 300 pounds online?
Well, yeah, I guess they can try to get away with it under the guise of it being hemp, because
it wasn't rooted when I sold
THC. Yeah.
Yeah, when I posted it, it wasn't rooted. Like, mate, this is like almost putting out buds. Amazing green hormone.
So I see people trying to put. Go ahead, Jim.
Oh no, go ahead.
Just saying. I could see people maybe even for much less trying to sell them as unrooted and just setting them up in a situation where it would be beneficial for them. Like they'll still root eventually, but as of it leaving them, it wasn't rooted.
Yeah.
Here's this plant source. It's not illegal to give you this plant source. But yeah, I know that with tissue culture, a lot of them are using the whole that very same situation of like, oh, it's even if it is rooted, is it expressing THC? Does it have THC on it? No, it doesn't. So what they're testing, if they were to test it, does this have THC in the test? No, it doesn't. So I could see them getting away with that technicality, that little loophole, but who knows when they're going to patch that up. If they even do, maybe things become all legal like Canada and we can start sending things back and forth without it being an issue.
Yeah, and I mean, and there's that thing where it's, sorry, it just made me think, sending it when I posted it, it wasn't rooted. It's like when you do calibration, because that's just where my mind went. It's like, yeah, calibrations are a fucking ripoff, man. They'll charge you a fortune to go, yeah, it's calibrated. But then you read the paperwork, it goes, the calibration is only guaranteed at the point of it being calibrated. The second it leaves that place, they go, well, anything can happen between now and you receiving it. But we can tell you it was calibrated at one point to match this one here. And you go, okay, great. That's how much did I pay you for this again? Ridiculous. Just having a read through people saying, yeah, maybe 3 phenos out of 10 in terms of consistency.
I was going to bring up, since we brought up the subject, we never really got to a conclusion on it. What is, for most of us, obviously, we're not going to be able to do, the ideal, like you said, would be the thousands and thousands and thousands. Well, we can't do that. It's not the realistic thing for most of us to do. So using the fact that, you know what the numbers are, what's our best bet to actually breed in a way that will avoid this overt bottlenecking? Is there anything that a practical application can be done on a small scale? Or is it just an inevitability and we have to accept it?
How much time do you have? I've thought about this. It's like, how much time do you really have? You could pop, you do 3-4 pops, do 3-4 separate runs of your F1s. Because you can only pop, say, 6 or 10, doesn't mean that it has to be your entire F1 pheno hunt. No. Go through, 6, go through 10, pick the best one. You set it off to the side, keep it. Pop another 6 or 10, go through that, find the best one. Is it better than the last one? If it's better than the last one, toss the first one and keep the better one. Do that 2, 3, 4 times if you need to. I mean, if you're working small scale and you want to do it the right way, and that's what you want to do, I mean, that's the best I can figure out without sending your genetics all over and having people just maybe sending you back the best pheno that they find, or,
trusting their judgment.
I think there was a, was it Top Floor Genetics made the comment, it's like the million garden grow. I mean, that's kind of it. That's how you do it these days. That's how a breeder needs to be able to do it. And this again is where thankfully, like technology does potentially step up to make that possible, is that a breeder should be able to send out tens of packets. If everybody can grow 10 seeds and you send it to 100 people, that's 1,000 that have suddenly been grown out all of a sudden. But, and you can kind of bump it more and more and more and keep going and keep going. But what you need is everybody to be collecting data in a consistent way so that they can see, all right, across all these different environments, I got all these different, now which phenotype kept being expressed in every single one of those environments. And you go, that's so pick that one to carry on working with it because it shows up everywhere. But that, you're doing, to liken it in computing, it's like parallel processing. You instead of doing it, I'm trying to grow 1,000 by doing them 10 at a time, and I'm going to do 100 runs of 10 at a time. Well, why don't I just do 100 runs at the same time of 10 each and just distribute it out and do it that way. And I think that's where it becomes a little bit more interesting in terms of how it can be, how we could move forward and do it properly, you know, with breeders engaging with the group.
Right. No, that'd be awesome to do that. I mean, like a big group pheno hunt where, you know, everybody's kind of on the same page and everything. Just it don't usually go.
Yeah, that's the trick is it's got to be a way of how do you capture all of that information, because it is a lot of detail that does actually need to be captured, but I think it's becoming easier and easier to do that. You know, yes, there's environmental logging like peel grow systems, the minder for doing that CO2, doing the infrared
says the data
stuff.
computer science guy.
Yeah.
Welcome to my world, said the spider to the fly.
Across the board, we're seeing more and more and more of that happening, and it's going to be easier and quicker, and it's going to become more connected. It's just the way everything is going.
So that's the consensus. Send a lot of your stuff out to get tested and hope you get good data.
Yeah, and as a breeder, work well with the. Make sure you've got a testing community that I would say, again, that might be one of those other things. As a breeder, you have here are the things you're growing for. This is the data I need you to record for me. I would say to breeders, people that give you loads of feedback, it's all about that value chain feedback loop. So if they give you loads of feedback, give them free seeds. If they give you no feedback and you want to be a tester, cool, you pay for the seeds. If you want them free, you better be supplying me a lot of information back. Consistently.
You know, I've done a few test grows for different breeders, and it's kind of surprising what you're really not asked for as far as info. You know, it's like, oh, I want pictures, and you know, just give me pictures. And it's like, well, you can't smell pictures, or you know, it's just like you don't want any more info other than just pictures and a weekly update. It's like, you know, this is my germ rate. This is how fast it was. You know, this is how quick they got to their first set of true leaves. You know, this is that. It's like nothing, just pictures.
My imagination
just their Instagram. That's all they're after. It's just for the gram. Yeah.
My imagination says too, they may be looking only for catastrophic failures. Do you know what I'm saying? They send it out to see when the wheels come off or if the wheels come off. If not, that's good enough.
And they'll take the best pictures from everything that gets sent through and use that to promote whatever it is that they end up selling.
Yeah. So at no point have we ever actually established a consistent plant, a good whatever. We've just established marketing. I mean, good job if we're a marketing company.
Yeah. Exactly. You know, and that's the sorry, the bit there with the.
So as Joke, are you a beer company or a marketing company? Take your choice. You're not both.
I mean, some people would say that Canna Nutrients are precisely that. They're a marketing company that happens to have a nutrient line. Because, Board Masters Surfing Tournament sponsored by Canna. You know, my kids come back from that one, all this Canna gear, and I'm like, where the fuck have you people been? I thought you said you were going to a surf fucking festival. Yeah, it was. Like, really? Yeah. Like, okay.
They're getting to our youth now.
At last. Woohoo!
I blame Fortnite. As soon as you see Canna Nutrients on Fortnite, game's over.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have said
you just
that.
Have a weapon mod, and it's just like a laser rifle that just says Canna Nutrients on the side.
The magazine that says Cal on it, so you can have a Cal mag.
There you go.
Oh, I got the Cal mag booster. Fuck yeah.
General Hydroponics can have 3 colored uniforms.
And then you'll
now
have
we're just giving them free stuff.
It's far too complicated. It's like 27 different combinations of parts of different things that you may be able to finally come up with the best gun if you can actually figure out what combination of all the parts are that you need to put together. and they're 1,000,000 pounds apart.
Were you just busting Mertz's nuts for that one? No, but Nectar of the Gods. No, sorry.
Well, what, you get pH
Million
locked
bottle
up
line.
James?
Shit works.
I don't doubt it. They're better for what they charge you, it seems like.
So just looking at some questions here. From Chrissy Boy in chat, when self-pollinating from the seed, if I picked only one that was similar to the parent, then self that. Carried on selfing, would I run into any problems like sterile seeds? I mean, I've heard of it potentially becoming a problem if you just continue selfing, that it can maybe become sterile, but I don't see why it would be any real problems with it. You just keep selfing it. It's very limited gene pool, but yeah, no, that should be able to keep going with it. I'm trying to remember if it was somebody did mention something that was it maybe with the males. If you kept getting males to self, they would eventually produce sterile offspring. Something like that. I can't remember the finer details.
I don't know a lot of people who reverse males.
Yeah. Not a common.
No, because
most
usually
common practice.
Usually good just to see what it's gonna show as far as phenotype, smells and stuff like that. You really can't use it once you reverse it.
But at least it does give you
It shows
a new generation to start with. I mean, you'll get males and females from a self male. You can, if you're the bag seed that you got, well, there you go. If the bag seed that you got was male, the amazing bag seed that you got, you pop one and it happens to be male, you could essentially self it and wind up with a line from that.
Would you want to use those? Would you want to use those seeds though? Because you don't reverse a male the same way you reverse a female.
It'll still
spray with a different chemical. I'm just curious. Everything I've heard about male reversals from breeders, they just do it just to look at it, not to ever do anything with it. You know what I mean? They do it just to see what it's going to show as far as, smells and maybe a little bit of frost and stuff like that, but never have I heard of it using the actual seeds to do anything with. I'm not saying it's not happening. I just have never heard it that way.
I'm not too sure. And then to Tasmanian Devil's question in chat, if you reverse male, does it make all males? No, it doesn't, because males have X and Y. So you get both males and females. That's the difference. I mean, that's why, with females, when you cross them, they've only got 2 X chromosomes to play with. So you only get females as a result. But reversing males, because they've got both X and Y, you can wind up with males and females from it, so you can start a new line from just a single male.
Think of it this way. That's why if you're a dude, that matters that's the determining factor. You are the determining factor on whether or not you have sons or daughters. It's not, it has nothing to do with the woman. It's entirely on you what the gender is going to come out.
Yeah. You produce the deciding factor at the genome level. Yeah. Well, on that fun and exciting note, that draws us to the end of the hour. If anybody would like to jump in and join us in the after show for a bit, I'll put that link up. There we go. After show. But on that note, where can everybody find everybody? GMF, where can everybody find you, sir?
Typically, fermenting food in the kitchen or in the garden, growing something to ferment, or fermenting weed sometimes, making beverages that are fermented, basically anything, you can put it in your face. I try to, do it at some point. So if anybody's got any questions, you can either catch me on the Neighborhood Grows on Monday, or hit me on my IG, Genetic Memory Farms. I like to be helpful. And I will say thank you to you, Pete, for making a space for our edification, you know, to finally, hopefully put a few nails in the coffin of bro science, I hope. But, you know, thank you again for making the time to make us this platform. And thank you to chat for coming to hang out, man. This is actually all very pointless without you guys. So thank you all very much.
Thanks, sir. And Gans Grow, where can everybody find you, sir? Are you muted, buddy? No one can hear you.
I'll find you. I promise.
Excellent.
Much love, everybody. I love you guys. Sorry I was late. But yeah.
No worries, man. And Lefty, where can everybody find you, bud?
Man, looked like you went for a nice little walk this morning, brother. You've been all over the place. I'm here on Saturdays with you guys hanging out. At Lefty's Farm on Instagram, at Lefty's Farm on Cannabis, and for all the local folks here in the DMV area, I'll be in Richmond tomorrow at the Gene Traders event, 12 to 4, I believe, and I'll be handing out a few packs of some Canna Queen genetics, and yeah, hanging out with some nice folks and getting to know the community.
Cool. Sounds like fun.
Yeah, buddy.
And Raptor, where can we find you, buddy?
You can find me at Raptor Grow on Instagram, the Neighborhood Grow Show, YouTube, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 Eastern, 12 UK, and Operation Grow. Yeah. You can also find me sometimes on Fridays. Well, not more. I'm more active with GR420. Had a good discussion on just some stuff I was working on this week. So hopefully see and hear from you all.
Nice. And you can catch me at Operation Grow 2019 on Instagram, or also at plgrow.systems, or at plgrow.systems if you type that in and go to the website. Yeah, and hopefully we'll catch you all next week. We probably have a follow-on on the series that Cascadian was doing on the population genetics. We'll be having a follow-up on that and continuing that series. So yeah, catch everybody next week. Stay safe, and thank you for joining us. If you want to jump into the after show, please feel free to. Cheers, everyone.